All right, thanks for joining me today. I'm making this video for my client Kareem, who's looking for a partner to partner up with. So the circumstances that we're under is that when when you get pre-approved, it gives you your spending limit, right? So let's call it 525 with a 350 HOA. So that gives us the idea that, okay, here in San Diego, if you're at a 525, you're probably going to be in a condominium or a townhouse if you're lucky. And the 350 HOA is actually about $50,000 in buying power. So if we can partner him up with somebody else that's qualified to 525 or more with 350 HOA also, then the two of them can go shop at 2 times 575, and that would be $1,150,000. So in this situation, they can maybe find a duplex or a triplex or maybe a house with an ADU and figure out how to make it work for the two of them. There's a lot of like questions and information that has to kind of go into play before we even go shopping with somebody else. First of all, we have to interview people. He's already met with one person and it didn't end up working out. And then he met with another person that I linked him up with, and we're kind of like thinking about it maybe. And then there's this third person that came around, but the third person's qualification is at 450 with a 350 HOA. So they're kind of at a 500 total. So that would, instead of shopping at 1,150,000 for this duplex, triplex, or house with ADU, we're now, if he partners up with him, we're now at a million or less. So what I wanted to do in this video is kind of go over the structure of how you would want to approach this partnership, right? And for that, I'm going to bring out my whiteboard, bring it here and kind of sketch some things out so that we can visualize it. And from here, I'll throw the transcript of this video into ChatGPT, and ChatGPT will give us kind of like where to start and all the things to discuss. And then once you discuss all those things together and come up with all of your if-then scenarios, then you can take it to a real estate lawyer, get it ratified, and have a really good, strong plan moving forward. All right. And by the way, I've had multiple clients do this before. I think I've closed 3 now where 2 VA buyers came together and bought a better house instead of buying a condominium on their own. And of course, the VA buyers that want their privacy or don't want to partner up with somebody, they're free to buy the condominium on their own. Let's see if we can get this camera angle a little bit better here. Let's see. All right, there we go. See more of that whiteboard there. All right, so first things first, we have 2 buyers, right? Let's call the buyers buyer A and buyer B, right? So now we have to go pre-approval wise, right? I'm going to go worst case scenario on this one for buyer B. Buyer A is going to be Kareem, who is at the 525,000 with 350, and then I'm going to pair him up with the 450,000 with the 350, right? So this is actually 500 with no HOA. This is actually 575 with no HOA. And something that we've learned, and I want to go ahead and share this with the world, is that when you go to do this, you can't say these two should be able to go shop at 1,075,000. That's just not how it works. So we're going to cross that out. What we're going to do is we're going to go the most restrictive, so the 500,000, and then we're going to say he's going to buy with 500,000 of his buying power, and then he's going to buy with 500,000 of his buying power, right? So now we're going to be shopping at that 1 million mark, right? So first things first, make sure that you guys like each other, and then while you like each other still, make sure that you're working out all of the if-then scenarios, so the exits and whatnot. And I'll just bring up a few right away. So number 1, everything is 50-50. So ownership is 50-50, liabilities are 50-50. So owner, liability, and obviously qualification is 50-50. and let's call it the wealth growth, right? Any cash flow, so on and so forth, right? So to make things easier and have kind of like I like calling it using a checking account like your accountant, right? So what you do is buyer A and B, they go to a bank or credit union, etc., and open a checking account, at least a checking account, maybe a savings account for your reserves. But we'll go over that. Just depends. If there's a high yield savings account, it would probably be beneficial for you guys. But all of this is 50-50, right? Oh, also the 50-50 is the tax benefits. Tax benefits. So this would be the writing off of the interest paid, bringing in the income. So that's 50-50 on the income. And also, if you do turn this property into a rental property later, when you go to depreciate the improvements, then you're going to want to split that tax benefit 50-50. So if one of you wants to take a $50,000 write-off from the improvement value, then you would want to do 50,000 each, or draw somewhere in the middle, 25-25 or whatever the case is. All right, so maybe spell that out in the contract as well. So anyway, A and B, they get this bank account together, they get the checking going, right? So let's just say that $1 million property, with the zero down VA loan today, we're looking at, let's call it $6,500 a month, right? So $6,500 per month is the liability. This $6,500 per month should be paid from this checking account that is shared, right? So if it's just the two of you living in that property and no renters of rooms or anything like that, then each of you make the deposit of $3,250. Anytime that there's like gardener or a pool guy or maintenance needed or servicing on HVAC, whatever the case is, you're going to want to pay the bill from this checking account. So first deposit 50-50, right? So if it's $500 bill, each of you deposit $250, right? Now, the best way to start this is take that 6,500 and times it by 6, right? So 6,000 times 6 is 36,000. $500 times 6 is 3,000. So we're at a grand total of $39,000. So $39,000 would be what you want your reserves account to be in, and that means that you want your balance of your checking account to be $39,000. So if it was me, I would probably put it in the contract that it's a $40,000 reserve, and the only time that we make withdrawals from this to our own personal income would be, let's say that in this scenario, we collected the room for rent or whatever rents are there, and we paid our portion, right? Then the account goes up to, and then we make the payment, and we pay for the maintenance, we pay for the gardener or whatever, right? And let's say that when all the dust settles towards the end of the month, it's at 42,000. At this point, I would take 1,000 and 1,000 and pay it out to each other, right? So each of you are collecting $1,000 at the end of that month, and then everything's collected, everything's paid, and when it settles out again, maybe it's 42,500, right? And take this money and invest it somewhere, right? Don't increase your quality of life quite yet, is my advice. And actually, my advice would be take that extra 2,000 and maybe apply it to the owed amount of the property, because then you would be paying less interest, because these mortgages, they're amortized every day, right? So you're paying interest on the balance every day. So if you wait till the 5th of the month, you're paying a little bit more interest. If you wait till the 15th of the month, you're paying a little more interest. So a lot of people don't know that. All right, so we got this $40,000 reserve account. Income's coming in, expenses are going out, mortgage is going out, right? Now, the things to really address, I'm going to draw a line here so I know don't go below that line, because you won't be able to see it in the camera. All right, so the things to address, let's go ahead and list those things out, right? So exit, that's probably where all of the fights are going to happen, right? So to hedge these fights, I would say, hey, let's have an annual meeting, let's have a biannual meeting, let's have a triannual meeting, whatever the case is. But let's say the most arduous one would be an annual meeting. So annual meeting, and I would identify a date for that meeting, and let's call it July 1st. I really like July 1st because this will make sense here in a minute. On July 1st, you each start the meeting with, do I want to keep it for another year? Yes or no? If both of you say yes, we want to keep it for another year, then annual meeting for exit is out. There's no exit this year, right? So if one of you says yes, or both of you say yes, if both of you say yes, then great. Call me up, call your realtor, get the meeting going and do it. So let's say one says yes and the other one says no. It's not about arguing or fighting. At this point, somebody wants out, right? You do not force people to stay in. This is not okay. So what we do is we call realtor and we say, hey, realtor, come over and tell us where you would be confident that this property is going to sell. Confident, not hopeful, a confident number. So my house, right? I would maybe list it at 1,750,000 and hope that I would get that or more, right? But confident, I could confidently sell it for 1,650,000, right? So for my, if we were exiting, my number that I would give my own property is 1,650,000, right? And then it's arguable too, because my neighbors are selling for 2.5, 2.25, right? But their houses are bigger and they have pools, but mine has a view, and you can get into all these mixed match. So what you do is you don't hire that realtor because you're not selling it, right? What you do is you call 2 other realtors, right? And you tell them, come over and tell us where you're confident, right? Let them give you their spiel, let them give you their pitch, like they're going to sell it. But you want that confident number, right? Now, when you have all 3 of those confident numbers, then you can take the average of those and go with that, or you can just knock off the top one, knock off the bottom one, go with the middle one, right? That would be the mean versus median approach. But figure that out. Put it. Are we going to use the median one? Are we going to use the mean of the 3? Are we going to use the lowest one? Are we going to use the highest one on the exit? Do it now because you don't know which one of you is going to want to exit later, right? So in this scenario, let's say that they give us a number where you're at 1,500,000, right? And you bought it for $1 million, right? So in the layman world, they would say, oh, look at this. There's 500,000. So you want out. I need to pay you 250,000. No. Because just off the top of my head, I'll say 1,500,000 times 0.94, right? I'm saying that the walk away is going to be $1,410,000, right? That $90,000 is what it would cost to sell. So you can't take that money from that person because you'll never get it, right? So now we're at 210, but wait, not yet, because this owed amount is now $940,000, right? So now we say, okay, minus 940,000, and we say, what's the remainder? $470,000. All right, so this puts the wants to stay guy in a position that he has to now, or she, of course, sorry to exclude anyone, I don't mean to. All right, so they have to come up with $235,000, right? There's a few ways that they can do it. They can call the lender and say, hey, can I get pre-approved to refinance this home that is now worth $1,500,000 to what is 235 plus this, right? So 235, can I refinance this to where I would now owe $1,175,000 instead of the both of us owing 1 million, or instead of both of us owing 940 together. So now that materializes the 235, satisfies that, and you're good, right? So the reason I like July 1st, I'm going to come back to this, is now you have 6 months. So January 1st, which really you should spell it out for December 31st. So December 31st, this money must be delivered by December 31st. When the money is delivered by December 31st, then a quitclaim is signed. The want out person is removed from the deed, and the want to stay in person is the sole owner. Now, these guys were only qualified to 500,000, right? So they might not be able to qualify for $1,175,000 on their own. At this point, you can look for another partner. And then we'll have to go through a bunch of really complicated calculus math on that to figure out what it would take for this partner to buy in on. Might be another veteran. That veteran might have sold a house and has $235,000, wondering what he should do with it. Maybe he buys into this one, right? So the point is, you could sell that position, you can buy that position, right? And the last way is, I'm not able to figure out a way to do it by December 31st. So because I cannot perform, even though I want to keep the house, I can't afford to keep the house by myself, which means that we should go ahead and sell the house, right? So I hope this helps in structuring this deal. There's a lot of things to talk about, like maintenance. So when you first get into this scenario together, you might decide as the two of you to go ahead and take care of the maintenance on your own, do it yourself stuff, Home Depot stuff. And in that case, you're just paying for the materials and you're putting in sweat equity. I don't suggest that being the case, because what will end up happening is, like, if you buy a house with me, I'm not going to do the work, right? Like, I'm pretty busy. I have my schedule. A lot of these VA guys, they're pretty busy and they have their schedules. So what would end up happening is my partner would end up doing all of the work. I would feel like I need to pay him for his time, which would be fair. But then if I don't pay him enough, then he's insulted. If I pay him too much, then I start resenting him for it. Then I start wanting to do some of the work, and it just gets pretty cloudy. So make sure that you define how you're going to do maintenance, how you're going to approach for maintenance, how you're going to pay for maintenance. Also talk about what each room is worth. And then if there's ever a vacancy room, this is like pad split approach talk right here. If there's going to be a pad split situation where you're renting rooms out, if there's a vacancy, it doesn't matter if it's in the unit that you live in or the unit that I live in, we're going to split that cost, right? Or does it matter, right? So there's all kinds of stuff on that. If you get into a partnership with somebody who says, well, I need 2 of the bedrooms, right? Well, then adjust how much they pay to that checking account based on how many bedrooms they're occupying. So a lot of people are working from home, or they have a spouse that's working from home. So you got, a bedroom that they sleep in, and then the office room. Now, if there's a 2-bedroom ADU, right, look at what 2-bedroom ADUs rent for and have that partner pay that amount to that checking account, right? What is the room rent for? If you're occupying that room, you pay that account what it would cost for you to rent that room, right? At the end of the month is when you say, okay, everything leveled out and that's it, right? And now we have an extra $2,000. You get $1,000 back, I get $1,000 back, right? So that's the way to structure it, to where there's just no arguments, there's no room for arguments, and you're having these discussions to establish expectations and ways forward on a contract before it would become a fight, before it could become somebody's upset about something, right? Something that just came up in my mind is that this room for rent situation, right? How do you do the utilities? That needs to be spelled out and agreed to also. I like the idea of having the tenants have ownership of the utilities, right? So that they're not blasting those ACs, so that they're not running the water and taking long showers, and they're conscious of the cost of these utilities. So what I would do is I would say, hey, we're in July. I'm going to pay the July utility bills from this account, and I'm going to account for how much it is. So let's say it's $500 worth of utility bills, and let's say there's 5 of us adults living on the property. Well, I would just go, I owe 100, they owe 100 each, and then boom, now you got your 500 back. But I would charge that 100 per tenant in August to recoup my July utilities. So you're going to have to front that first month, and then if the person says, hey, I'm going to move out at the end of the month, right? Then I'll say, cool. I'll tell you at the end of the month how much your share is, because it's not going to be a clean 100, right? And don't spell it out in the contract. Just spell out in the contract that they'll pay 1/5 of the utility bill, or 1/6 or 1/7, how many ever roommates there are. And by the way, if you're a couple living in one of the rooms, that's 2 shares of utilities.